more time. All right. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to mess with that anymore. I'm going to, I'm recording on another program. Try one more time. Nope, that's okay. My wife recently installed a program where I can record this stuff on the computer and automatically put my stuff on Spotify and I think Apple Podcast. Seem to be having an issue there, so it's fine. We'll just convert it like we did the other videos. Well, I say we. My wife spent all day converting all of my older streams, podcasts, whatever you want to call them, into audio formats and putting them on Spotify. And again, I think it's Apple Podcasts. I should probably know that, but I was hoping I could live stream it to there like this, but probably something I should figure out, not on the fly, but it's okay. It is what it is. For those of you that are watching and not listening, you'll notice we got another change of venue here. I didn't exactly like the Walmart parking lot for the last one, even though it got dark, so those are totally my shower curtains. Don't judge me. This has always been a duct tape production, and you know it. Anyway, so that said, the moral of the story is, other than be prepared and know what you're doing, is that my stuff's going to be on Spotify, and whatever the other one is, I'll put it in the description after this. So if you want to listen instead of watching this shoestring coat hanger production, you can do that, and I'll leave links on how to do that. So we're going over the debate tonight. Going to be just talking about who's in it, what are my predictions, what are they going to be talking about, again, what I hope they're talking about. I'll tell you on the front end that I don't expect a lot of engagement with this debate tonight, mostly because no one watched the last one. I love this stuff, and the last one was so boring. I just don't expect a lot of people to be watching it, but they might, and for those of you that don't, I'll tell you what my predictions are and what I expect, and then I'll do a follow-up video, and you can see if I was right, wrong, or somewhere in between. But first we'll go over the facts, and then I'll kind of get into some points, predictions, that type of stuff. So here's who's going to be in it. We got Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Andrew Yang, Amy Klobuchar, and Tom Steyer. So we have 7 candidates. It's the smallest of the primaries so far, primary debates for them so far. There are people who didn't make the cutoff to be in it that are still in. So this will be Cory Booker's first debate that he won't participate in because he didn't qualify. This will be Julian Castro's second debate that he didn't participate in because he didn't qualify. And then there are others who are in that they announced their campaign recently, late entries like Michael Bloomberg and Deval Patrick that aren't going to be participating. Bloomberg might make it for the next one, I don't know. But it's just those 7 for now. So it's the smallest and the whitest. There was a whole lot of fuss about the fact that this is the whitest one, which is funny because I guess the media just figured out Elizabeth Warren is white. That's kind of a fun kind of cognitive dissonance happening there. Anyway, so this is the second to last debate before the Iowa caucuses in February, and I'll kind of get into why that matters here in a minute. But it's the second to last one, so you don't have any more debates of 2019, and you don't have to worry about any more until like February of next year. So that's pretty cool. So here's where things are at, all right? Here's what I'm looking for each of the candidates, and then I'll get into kind of the specific topics and some of the more maybe philosophical stuff after that. So Joe Biden, he's at 28% in the generals. He's been around there for the general polling. He's been anywhere from the mid-30s to like around maybe 24, 26. So he's sitting at where he's basically always been. Biden, basically what he needs to do is just not appear to be a corpse. He did good enough during the last debate. He only had one big gaffe, and that was when Kamala was on stage. And it didn't really hurt him that much. So all Biden really has to do is just, again, not give a real strong Weekend at Bernie's kind of vibe. I mean, the movie, not at Bernie Sanders, is obviously. And I think he'll be okay. Now, he's polling third in both Iowa and New Hampshire, and there's a lot of people that think that doesn't matter. I disagree. I think that actually matters a lot. And I think that there are some pretty good indicators that maybe he's not as strong as he seems. Scott Adams has a pretty good take on this, where he basically says, look, the people who are supporting Biden in the polls aren't like excited about Biden. They're just responding to name recognition. And he said, have you ever met a Biden supporter? You know, have you ever met someone that has a Biden bumper sticker on the car, or Biden t-shirt, or whatever? And the answer is no. No one's ever met a Biden supporter or someone who's really enthusiastic about Joe Biden. And so, again, like what I said at the very beginning, I think people are excited or at least support what Joe Biden represents in their mind, but not necessarily him as a candidate. And so I think there's a whole heck of a lot of Democrats that are just hoping for an alternative to him and just waiting for that person to emerge in a way that seems safe. So I think that a lot of people are hearing those numbers and hearing him as a front runner and going, okay, I guess I support Biden, and answering that in the polls. But I don't think he's as durable or as, I don't think he's as much of a contender as he seems like. Anyway, Sanders, he is polling at 19%. He's at 20% in Iowa, so he's second place in the Iowa polls. He's been steadily rising. So if you remember, he had a heart attack like at the beginning of October, and his poll numbers like tanked right after that. I think he dropped down to around 14%. And Warren skyrocketed after that. She was up at, I think, around 27% at the highest. And since then, since the debate right after that, where he showed, look, I'm doing all right, or as all right as you can be for being 700 years old, he's continued to rise, and Warren has continued to decline. So Sanders is at 19% generally, and at 20% in Iowa, like I said. So I don't think he'll change much of anything, because Sanders is Sanders. He's going to keep doing the same thing. And the fact that he's been climbing in the polls, again, since that heart attack, since the last debate and the one before that, tells me that, you know, he's like, I got a strategy, I'm going to stick to that. I wrote the damn bill. Healthcare is a human right. You know, some other thing that we've heard him say 100,000 times. And that's it. And that's fine. Bernie's going to do what Bernie's going to do. So I would expect him to just stick to the script that he normally sticks with. Warren. So here's someone who has been declining precipitously. I think she's now down to 15% in the national polls. She's fourth in Iowa at 16%. I think she's fourth in New Hampshire also, which is really close to her home state of Massachusetts. So Warren is sliding and has been for a little while. Her policies aren't popular. She is not a likable candidate. So I expect her, she's going to have to do something tonight. So last time she came out and basically answered every question, no matter what the question was about, with like a defense of her wealth tax. That did not work out very well for her. So she's going to have to come up with some new strategy. What I'm wondering is if she'll go basically full Kamala. You know, when Kamala started to slide in the polls, she was like trying a new strategy every debate, every other week. She was trying some new things. That's one of the things that her campaign manager was really frustrated about, and why her campaign manager quit right before Kamala dropped out. She said, there's no coherent message here. She's just trying random stuff. No one really knows what she represents. So I'm wondering if Warren will do something similar to where she's like, crap, I'm tanking. I need to climb in Iowa. I need to get some momentum. The momentum is not on my side. And so I'm wondering if Warren will try something different tonight. I don't know what it could be. She could go after Sanders. I think that gambit won't work out. My guess is that she'll go after Biden for sure. But she's going to have to try something, basically, is the main takeaway. Warren is going down. She doesn't have any momentum, and so she's going to have to try something tonight. I don't know what that is. Might be going after Pete Buttigieg. I don't know. But she needs to get some momentum going into the debates in February, or else she's going to be pretty done. She'll hang around, but I think this could be the beginning of the end for her campaign. But we'll see. But she needs to do something tonight. Pete Buttigieg, he is first in Iowa at 22% still. He is polling 8% nationally, so he's went down a little bit. He did a good job defending himself in the last debates. That's one of the things people were looking for. They were like, okay, he's doing well in Iowa. People are going to go after him. And they did. He received a decent amount of attacks, decent amount of criticisms. And he handled it pretty well, to be honest. He handled himself well. So the question will be if he can do that again. Since then, he's come under fire for I think his consulting work that he did. Who were the people he worked for? You know, who are his donors? You know, this is a really bad time to even associate with anyone who's wealthy. If you're a Democrat, except for unless you're someone who's running, right? So Elizabeth Warren's very wealthy, Bernie Sanders is very wealthy. So it's okay if you're running and you're wealthy, unless you're Tom Steyer or Michael Bloomberg. But if you're associating with anyone that's wealthy, then that's a bad thing. So Pete Buttigieg has been coming under fire for that, and I expect him to take some criticisms again. I think that he'll do well. He did well last time, like I said. I think he's fairly durable. It'll just depend on if they come after him on the wealth stuff and, again, some of the continued race stuff. He took some heat for some comments he made about education that were totally true comments. But there's a lot of people out to get Pete Buttigieg. So I think he'll probably do fine. He just basically needs to do the same thing he did last time, which was handle criticisms well and appear to be moderate. Now, he's not. He's not moderate, but he needs to appear to be moderate to continue to do that. And if he does that, I think he'll be okay. So the last three that are going to be in it, Amy Klobuchar, she needs to have another moment. She's been climbing in the polls. She's at 3.3%, which is up from like the 2% she was at. I expect her to continue to go after Warren, maybe go after Mayor Pete, I don't know. But one of the problems with Klobuchar is she needs to do really well in Iowa. Her campaign is banking on her doing well in Iowa. So she's going to have to probably go after Pete in some capacity. I don't know what that'll be. But she needs to, again, continue to show that she's the alternative to Joe Biden. She is what Pete Buttigieg seems to be, I think, is the main thing Klobuchar needs to keep hammering home. People think Pete Buttigieg is the alternative to Biden. He's really not. He's not a contender. He won't do well in the South. He's not going to take this thing where it needs to go. And so I think Klobuchar needs to continue to distinguish herself like that. There's a lot of establishment Democrats, I think, that want to support Amy Klobuchar, but are having a hard time doing it right now. So she, again, needs to continue to separate herself out, have some big moments, and hope to get some momentum going into February, basically. Andrew Yang, he's one who has been losing momentum. His campaign's not doing very well financially. It hasn't been for a while. He just unveiled his healthcare plan. It's not very popular. So he needs to have a moment, kind of in a different kind of way. Klobuchar needs to have, a moment in the same way she kind of has been and been slowly gaining in the polls very incrementally. He needs to have one to hang in here. He's been going down. He needs to continue to distinguish himself. But the I'm a businessman, or I was a businessman strategy wasn't working. It's not working for Tom Steyer. It just isn't. It seems probably too similar to Donald Trump. There's a lot of, at least among the base for the Democrats, there's a lot of disdain for capitalism. So anything that just reeks of capitalism or business or anything like that, corporate America, is not very popular. And Yang, I think he's tried a few things. He's a very reasonable guy, a likable guy, but you can only answer, let's throw $1,000 a month at it, to so many questions before people say, do you have anything else? Now, one thing I think Yang could do is to come out against the impeachment. That would be a way to shake things up. I don't know if he will. I don't think he will. But I think if he did that, he would actually gain some momentum and pick up some poll numbers. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but I think that'd be probably one of the main things he could do. Now, Tulsi, who isn't going to be here tonight, she and Yang have kind of been looped together as people that aren't getting enough attention. The media doesn't seem to like. The establishment Democrats don't seem to like. So they've kind of been at least mentally joined together. And Tulsi voted present. She was the only congressman that voted present during the impeachment hearings or whatever yesterday. And so I think that if he latches onto that and maybe says, yeah, I agree with Tulsi, so they'll bring it up for sure. I think if he gives any criticisms to the impeachment process or comes out against it, I think that will actually work in his favor, to be totally honest with you. But I'll talk about that here in a second. Tom Steyer, this is my cursory mention of Tom Steyer because he's going to be on stage. Not that it matters. He's at 1.5% nationally, 2.5% in Iowa, 2% in New Hampshire. Tom Steyer is going to stare awkwardly at the camera, talk about climate change, and talk about how much he hates Donald Trump. That's basically all he's going to do. He'll probably, again, try to distinguish himself as a businessman, say this is how I'm different from these other candidates, but this is just not a good time to be associated with business or capitalism or anything even remotely productive in the Democratic Party. So Steyer's not going anywhere. That's my cursory mention of Steyer. He'll be toast, relatively soon, so whatever. So here's the topics I expect them to go over. Income inequality. This debate's in California, I believe. So I think that they might talk about homelessness because California has basically become this, in some places and municipalities, almost like a failed state to some degree because of how much degradation there is because of how much homeless. It's really, really bad. There's needles, there's poop. I've talked about it a lot. So they might talk about homelessness, but my guess is if they do that, they'll loop it into a broader conversation about income inequality, and Bernie Sanders will mention how many empty houses there are in California and everyone should just get a free house or something. But they'll talk about income inequality for sure, and California's a good place to do that. They probably won't talk about it honestly, but they will talk about it, I imagine. They'll talk about big tech. It's near Silicon Valley, ramping up to this debate. There's been different companies changing their terms of service. Twitter has done that. YouTube just recently changed its terms of service. Facebook has stood out as kind of one of the people who's saying, we're not going to do this. We're not going to try to be super partial here like you want us to be. So I expect them to attack Facebook, attack Silicon Valley, probably argue for some type of fact-checking mechanisms or something, because a lot of them still blame social media for Donald Trump winning. So I'll probably talk about that. Race stuff will probably come up. There's been some pieces about anti-Semitism lately. I expect them to mention that. Race also might come up in the context of Pete Buttigieg because he's come under fire for some stuff he said about public education. Again, stuff that was demonstrably true, but it was about inner city families and inner city kids and inner city schools, and he took a lot of criticism for that. And so that'll probably come up. Anti-Semitism, again, also will. My guess is it won't come up in a way that's honest, but it'll probably come up. Again, border security, since California, immigration will be a big part of the conversation, I imagine. So I expect that to also be discussed. Your typical stuff, gender stuff, pay gap maybe, I don't know, will come up. But here's the main things. The main things I want them to talk about, that they will talk about, that I think will be what we'll learn the most from, okay? The first one is going to continue to be healthcare. What I've been saying for a while is that there are two incompatible visions of governance within the Democratic Party, and the most telling place where this division exists is in the conversation about healthcare. There's the Warren and Sanders, and there's basically everyone else. And so I expect them to talk about healthcare. I hope it gets heated when they talk about healthcare. I hope they talk about healthcare in a way that is like, this is incompatible. We're not on the same team here. Recently, there was a piece that discussed about how Obama had said that if Sanders looks like he was going to get the nomination, an Obama aide said, yeah, Barack said he would come out and say Sanders isn't a Democrat. He's not one of us. Don't vote for him. And so even Barack Obama, he recognizes this is incompatible. This is not, they don't work. They've allowed it to exist in their party. It doesn't work. And so I hope that divide continues to really crystallize and become very clear at least in the psyche of the American voters, that these aren't just two differing opinions, these are incompatible visions. And where we've seen that fight break out in high resolution is on the topic of healthcare. And so they will talk about that. Hopefully that'll be a place that Yang can talk about why his healthcare plan actually is decent, I don't know, or make some corrections there. But regardless, that'll be the place where we'll see that fight break out. I hope it continues to really crystallize, for them to really hammer home, this is not compatible, you got to pick one. So that'll be the first one. The other one where we will learn a lot is the impeachment stuff. So the unfortunate reality for Klobuchar, for Sanders, and for Warren is they are senators. They are going to, they're the ones who this thing is maybe going to. Nancy Pelosi's now saying that she's worried that that it won't be handled fairly in the Senate because they handled it so fairly in the House of Representatives. But she's worried about that, and so she's maybe not going to send the bill over to the Senate for them to conduct the hearing on. And so that issue of will the thing be fair or whatever, since that's kind of been parroted in the media, my guess is that Sanders, Warren, and Klobuchar will have to be in lockstep with that because they're going to be in the Senate, so they're going to have to vote for impeachment. And so I think they'll have to kind of just say, this won't be fair, and Mitch McConnell's this bad guy, whatever. But how people talk about impeachment, I think, really matters. It matters in terms of just kind of where they are, what they're willing to say, what they're willing to do. And the fact that there were a lot of Democrats who were saying that I don't want to support this, and it wasn't until they basically had to say that. Like Tulsi was the last one to say, it's pretty telling. I think a lot of them are just saying what they have to say, but now that this thing is official, that it's probably going to the Senate, hopefully, I think how they talk about that's going to be a big deal. And what I will say here is that I think that if any candidate comes out and says, yeah, actually, I don't think that this was the slam dunk that we thought it would be, and I just would rather us decide this thing in November, and, maybe there's a point here, maybe we just need to get this done with. Anyone that even dips a toe in criticizing the impeachment, I think will do well. Anyone that repeats kind of there's the articles last night, Nancy Pelosi, very somber, very sad. She's very sad and very somber. This is very serious. About we have to do this. We have no choice. I think any candidate up there that echoes that in a way that seems like that's what they're really trying to sell you will not do well. Any candidate that's like, yeah, we really didn't want to do this. This was really just really so hard. And man, but the evidence was overwhelming. It was, anyone that tries to peddle that, I think will not do well. They won't be received well. There's a reason that Trump's numbers have went up in almost every category since this thing started, and especially in the last week. And that's because people are so over this. It's you can't understate how over this impeachment people are. So I think any candidate that tries to basically mirrors we're very sincere that voters are getting from CNN and NPR and MSNBC and from Nancy Pelosi, Jerry Nadler, Adam Schiff, whatever. Any candidate that seems like they're trying to be like that is not going to do well, because people are very turned off by that on the left and on the right. So I think impeachment's going to be a big thing also. Here's bonus points. They probably will talk about this. They won't give it the time they should. This is what I said last time. So what they need to be talking about is this too far left. What's it look like for us to go too far left? Are we alienating voters? And now, after Boris Johnson got elected last week in a landslide and just destroyed Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, Jeremy Corbyn, who is a socialist, Bernie Sanders and his campaign were totally supportive of Jeremy Corbyn. They're tweeting out, go out, vote for Jeremy. He's for the people, whatever. Corbyn got destroyed. And so now we actually have an example we could point to and say, the too far left, this is what happened. Is there any credibility to this? Should we maybe moderate a little bit here? Are we maybe pandering or catering too much to a small minority of our base? If they talk about it in an honest way, I think that'd be really good. I think that'd be good for the party. That'll help the party be healthy, or at least be moving back to a healthy place. But how they talk about the UK election, that will be the third thing that I think will be very telling. Will they be honest about it? Will they say, let's really look at why Corbyn lost. Let's look at the things he ran on, and are we trying to peddle those same things? What were the polls saying about the election before it happened, and what happened? And will they contrast Sanders with Corbyn? I think that'd be an honest thing to do. So anyway, those are the main three things that'll be telling. And what I mean by that is it'll tell us where the candidates are, but I think it'll also tell us where the party is, because how the candidates talk about those things will indicate at least where they think their base is, at least where they think the party is, to some degree or another, and who they're paying lip service to. And who they think they have to pay lip service to, again, gives us some information about at least where the perception of the party is. So those are the main three things: healthcare, impeachment, the UK election. That'll be really telling, and hopefully that will further, again, tease out and really show there are two incompatible visions within this party, and it's not sustainable. What are we going to do about this? So anyway, if someone comes out against impeachment, I expect them to climb in the poll numbers. But anyway, okay. Last thing. Here's my main predictions, and we'll get out of here because the debate's going to be starting soon. Yang has to have a good night, or else he's toast. He's been sliding in the polls, but I think he probably is going to. These are, what I'll say here is some of these things. It's like, unless something miraculous happens, here's what I think will happen. So I think Yang is probably going to be out. So here's my list of who I think is going to drop before the February debates, or at least won't participate in them. So the fourth quarter fundraising ends the 31st of December, and then they'll start fundraising for the first quarter. So it'll be a fresh, push for campaign fundraising. Anyone that comes out of this debate without momentum, or currently has no momentum, Booker, Castro, etc., is going to be toast. That is a huge time gap between now and February 3rd. It just is. So who I think probably will drop before February, or at least won't participate, unless, barring a miracle, something else, would be Booker, Castro, Gabbard, unfortunately, Andrew Yang, Tom Steyer, I think, will probably stay in because he has the money to. The others don't have the money. I think he'll stay in, but I don't think he'll make it for the February 3rd debate. Michael Bennet and John Delaney. You're probably going, who's Michael Bennet? Who's John Delaney? Yeah, they haven't been in a debate since like the second debate, or since the second round of debates. They're both polling at 0.5%. I don't know why they're still in it. So that leaves about 11% of the electorate up for grabs. People who could be in the next one: Deval Patrick, Michael Bloomberg. Bloomberg's polling above a couple of people who are in this debate. So we'll see what happens there. But I think there's a lot of people who are going to drop, and I think that who drops and who gets their support as a result is going to change the dynamics. And what I hope it ends up happening is it's a referendum on the radicals that the Democrats have allowed to basically metastasize in their party for the past several decades. So that's what I hope that'll happen. I don't think it'll happen, but that's what I hope that'll happen. Last thing's kind of interesting. Maybe they'll mention it, maybe not. So Deval Patrick, the former Massachusetts governor, he's black, so he's, one of the minorities that they're saying, this thing is so white. He's getting no coverage at all. He announced his candidacy. I'm not seeing him on any networks very often. I think MSNBC has him on sometimes, maybe CNN. He's not getting any coverage, and I'm really curious as to why that is, because if we're concerned about, having a really diverse candidate field, as the Booker and as, Harris and Castro recede, then it's like, well, maybe Deval Patrick. So, but he's not getting any press, and I don't know why that is. So I'm wondering if they'll talk about that, if they'll talk about the whiteness of the debate tonight, and if he'll get brought up, if anyone even mentions the fact that it's really ironic they're talking about how white it is with Elizabeth Warren up there, that would be amazing. I would say that person gets the nomination, to be honest with you, if someone makes an Elizabeth Warren joke up there, but probably won't happen. Anyway, okay, so that's where we stand. I'll watch the debates. I'll be live tweeting. And then on Sunday, I will do a live stream talking about the wrap-up of the debates, other things that are going on right now, maybe a springboard into Christmas. We'll see. But I'll do a debate recap this coming weekend. Follow me on Twitter if you don't want to watch this, but do want to kind of know what's happening, and watch me make Bernie Sanders jokes on Twitter. And yeah, also follow me on YouTube, or subscribe me on YouTube if you're watching these, if you like watching this stuff. Like seeing my super sweet shower curtain that I think we got at Target. I don't know. Or, again, now my stuff is going to be on Spotify, and I think it's Apple Podcast. Again, I'll put that in the link. So you can check me out on there if you don't like watching videos. I think that more people listen to stuff while they're going to work and stuff. So follow me on Spotify and whatever the other one is. Really appreciate it. If you like this type of stuff, please like, share, and subscribe. Give me any comments, any pushback, any criticisms, whatever. If you think I'm off, if you think that I missed a point, or if you think I'm misrepresenting anything like that, always love to hear that type of feedback. Yeah, that said, appreciate it. Check you later. Did I press it? I didn't press it. See ya.